up somehow.
Yes, my Straight Talk family, it's time for me to welcome you to another edition of Straight Talk. And it is time for me to say good night to St. Kitts and Nevis. It's time for me to say good night to the entire Caribbean region. And a very pleasant night to the world, because we are on the World Wide Web and we reach in particular our Kittitian and Nevisan diaspora all over the world. There's some in Africa, there's some of you in Asia, There's some of you all over Europe. My posse there in England, it's morning time, so I can't say good morning. What about all over North America? So I can say good morning, I can say good afternoon, and I can say good evening, because one of such greetings will be applicable to the region in which you now find yourselves. Perhaps just relaxing. Some of you in North America waiting patiently for the holidays, the upcoming holidays, no doubt. But whatever you're doing, I'm happy that you've taken the time out to connect with Straight Talk, your program. And for the first timers, it's a public service program. I missed you on Thursday. I'm sure you missed me too. But we had some things to accomplish, and we thought we would just focus directly on those things which we did and have accomplished them. And I'm happy to be back with you on yet another occasion. And on this occasion, it's Monday the 28th day of August. And oh, how August has swiftly come to an end. Just as fast as July continues to lie, believe it or not, my Straight Talk family. And for the first time, again, like I said, Straight Talk is a public service program that facilitates and promotes free expression on all issues of national interest, be they legal, be they environmental, be they technological, social, economic, and or political issues. On Straight Talk, we do have a forum to express yourselves freely. Let's, in the process, let's try our utmost best to see if we can get St. Kitts and Nevis back to that enviable position of being one of the freest countries, if not the freest country in the world. It's a Himalayan task, I believe, especially with the kind of leadership we have. But on this program, we try as well to raise the level of national consciousness. We try to raise the level of national discourse by alerting our people to their rights, to their responsibilities, and certainly to their obligations. My name is Ian Patches Liburd, and I give Almighty God thanks for blessing me with yet another opportunity to join you in conversation on yet another occasion. And my Straight Talk family, tonight, as we have in the past, as normality, we do have our thesis, and we do title our theses. And tonight's thesis we have titled No Credibility, the Hallmark of a Poor Leader. Well, before we go into the details, we normally have our observations in review. And even before that, we want to, on a solemn note, extend our condolences to Sister Sonia Hector, a former teacher, member of my church, the Zion Moravian Church. I've known her all my life, basically. And it's so sad when I've heard of her passing, because I asked her sister in church on Sunday, not Sunday, on the Sunday before. She told me she wasn't accepting visitors, but the very next day, she's gone to the great beyond. So for Delia and the entire family, we do extend condolences. And as well, I got the shock of my life. I heard of my daughter. I call her my daughter, Sharina. She called me Pops. And that's a long story. And she too, at a tender age, with so much to offer, has gone to the great beyond, and we extend our condolences to the entire family. Extend our condolences to the entire family. And we want to single out my brother, Dred Laws, his daughter and his wife, Mervyn, and the entire family. Words can't really express how I feel about Serena's passing, but life is a process, they say, or death rather. It's a process, and we can say anything. We can say anything, quite frankly, but who feels it, knows it. I always like to refer to that Jimmy Cliff song. And there may be others who have lost loved ones. We extend our condolences to their families as well, and trust that you will be strong in these times of or periods of adversity. My Straight Talk family, in my observations and review, that's the time when we highlight our issues, we highlight issues of the day, and we, in fact, in fact, we do some reflection and ask a few questions, and we try to establish whether it has helped others, if it has helped us, what has changed, and what can be expected next. My Straight Talk family. And tonight's observation, our first observation in review for tonight, and yes, you see me doing quite a lot of things one time. Yes, my Straight Talk family, bear with me. From the moment that our aging, and I say so with a hard heart, I'm going to be frank. I like to be frank with you. Garth Lewis and Wilkin, remember, launched an attack against all those whom he considered opposite to the party that nominated him to his present position. Recall he introduced what he labeled the rule of man, and threatened to embarrass and all those, quote unquote, who reap the treasury, the government treasury. And as a lawyer, as I mentioned before, but it bears repeating, that he must have been fully aware of everyone's right to due process. But he didn't care less, as the power vested in his office made him comfortable playing the role of judge, jury, and prosecutor. Remember, he said this, my Straight Talk family.
Procurement Act has been breached left, right, and center. I've seen one contract, no procurement. The contracts that I spoke about in my press release, no procurement. People need to know these things because it's their money. The treasury is not my money, it's not your money, it's everybody who pays taxes. So we are custodians of the people's money, so we have to protect it.
And my Straight Talk family, in spite of all his pronouncements, the breaches of the Procurement Act still continue, and in such a reckless manner under this new Labour administration. We are still following the latest breach of the Procurement Act, to which Garth Lucian Wilkin has obviously turned a blind eye. And this contract concerns, a multi-million-dollar contract concerns or relates to the purchase of water storage tanks by the Jew administration. And all Dr. Drew could tell us was this, my Straight Talk family.
We have sent the fire truck, we have sent the water truck. We continue to send the fire truck, we continue to send the water truck. We have just signed a contract to purchase water storage tank. So at least when the water truck goes, they have a larger receptacle to store the water. People are having serious challenges. I would also like to thank Mr. Ashley Allers, because he's the one who brought the idea of how we can help with the storage receptacles that we're going to launch just now. That took a little bit longer because I had to go through the procurement process and so forth for transparency and so forth. But that is another matter another aspect that we have brought to bear to deal with the issue in terms of getting larger receptacles. And when we have more water, those will be set up completely so that people can have proper storage.
And you hear him, how he fabricates, and so forth and so forth. What procurement process and so forth, we ask. And what transparency, Dr. Drew? And I want to ask the question tonight to Dr. Drew. I understand you sometimes listen, but I know your advisors do. And I ask this question, who is this young lady, Ashmain Allers, that works as project manager? And why would you, Dr. Drew, need a project manager in the office of the Prime Minister? You have a permanent secretary. So what is really the functions of this project manager in the office of the Prime Minister? Why are you doing projects from your office and not from the Public Works Department? The other question that arises, what is the relationship of Ashmain Allers to or with Ashley Allers, who was awarded the contract to supply water tanks? A contract we understand running in the amount of US $5.8 million was signed. And no matter what you can tell us or you will want to tell us, there was no procurement in accordance with the law, in accordance with the Procurement Act. Because if there was procurement, there should have been notice given. There should have been notice for tender. And the Act speaks to the notice of solicitation, or pre-qualification, I should add. And it says, my straight talk family under subsection 13 of the Act, and I quote, subject to section 16, the procurement officer has no discretionary authority. He says he shall, meaning he must ensure that notice of a solicitation for a procurement by tender or an invitation to pre-qualify for a procurement by tender is given, hear this, in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation in the Federation. Which newspapers? What are the newspapers in which they were circulated? And it goes on to say no less than 6 weeks before the day and time for the close of bids or proposals or invitations to pre-qualify, as the case may be. And that's the process, or part of the process, as it relates to procurement, my straight talk family. So that, I say, is the daylight hypocrisy of Dr. Drew. Also his Attorney General Garth Lucien Wilkin, who said that it is a crime, not me. Garth Lucien Wilkin said that it is a crime to spend money from the Treasury without procurement or without the procurement process being completed. Here's what he said. We always bring you the evidence, my straight talk family. Here's what he said.
Our Procurement Act requires that there be a competitive bidding process to ensure the government gets value for money, and it makes it a crime to spend money from the Treasury without the procurement process being completed.
And those are not my words. Those are the words of the Attorney General, as disgraced as he may be. He said the Procurement Act makes it a crime to spend money from the Treasury without procurement. But do we expect anything better from Garth Wilkin? Because we know that the High Court judge said that he committed a criminal offense. So we all can say, like our champion boxer, Fighting Hunks. I haven't heard or seen Fighting Hunks for a long time. But Hunks had this to say, my straight dog family: Satan can't judge sin.
Be a Satan and judging sin. Satan can't judge sin. The only thing Satan going to judge you is bring you down by him. So that's all. Satan will try to bring you down by him.
So my straight dog family, Garth Lucien Wilkin, like Satan, he cannot judge sin. But this story we are going to follow, because we have not known how many tanks, but those are some expensive tanks, exorbitant costs for those tanks. Jew needs to come clean if he wants to do anything about his credibility. My Shizok family, our second observation, and I recall that the first time a medical doctor became the minister, I should say, of health. And I stand to be corrected, because I do not believe any time throughout our since adult suffrage, and we've had elections, that no doctor was ever appointed minister with responsibility for health. And the first time a medical doctor became the Minister of Health, I recall, was in 1995, when Earl Asim Walters, also known as Earl Asim Martin, was appointed as Minister of Health by the Straight Dog family. Asim studied in Cuba, but he never had a real medical practice upon his return from studies. So many a time I recall I would stop by his office. My Straight Dog family. I would stop by his office, and he was glad for my many visits. I asked him, really never had any patience, to be honest with you. Really never had his patience. And my Straight Dog family, he was therefore happy, I should say, to enter politics. And I was recruited to assist him with his campaign through the instrumentality of my cousin O.W. Liburd, who was then party chairman. Asim won the seat in East Bastia in 1993, my Straight Dog family, when we had that hung parliament that led to the Butland Stones in downtown Bastia, and again in 1995, when he was appointed Minister of Health. He served in that capacity for nigh 10 years, and under his supervision and control, the health system generally and the J.N. France General Hospital deteriorated to an all-time low, believe me. Asim would perhaps be one of the worst health ministers ever to be appointed in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now we have the second doctor who appointed himself as Minister of Health, and ironically, he's also Cuban trained. But based on Hassan's performance, I posited the view since last year when Joe appointed himself that medical doctors do not make good ministers of health. And when I reflected on the fact that Simmons had a successful practice as a doctor, so too had Douglas. But having both served in government for 15 and 20 years respectively, none of them, for obvious reasons, tangled with the idea of becoming Minister of Health. They, like me, no doubt, conceded that doctors do not make good ministers of health. Drew, however, obviously does not subscribe to that view. Even under his watch as Minister of Health, the health system has crashed. The situation is so dire at the JN France General Hospital. It prompted this doctor, who emanated from the bowels of the Labour Party, to break ranks with the medical fraternity and the Ministry of Health, or Minister of Health, who is also the Prime Minister. This doctor is the wife of Ambassador Wilson, former Labour candidate, beg your pardon, who Drew recently appointed as ambassador to Venezuela, my straight dog family. This Dr. Wilson's wife is alongside him there in Venezuela, alongside there with President Maduro, my straight dog family. And in a damning Facebook post, the wife of Norjan Wilson, my straight dog family, had this to say. Believe it or not. In a damning Facebook post, I should say, she said this, my straight dog family. In this post on Facebook, here's what she said. She said this, my straight dog family. And you can see it, read it yourselves. And I quote, "Why do we have physicians in St. Kitts who lose sight of why they choose this profession? We are humans. We are not perfect, but we have to aim for the greatest outcome for our people. Nowhere in the world are doctors always right, but my God, try our best." And this is what's damning my straight dog family. She went on. "Patients are dying in droves at the in France. I am sick of referring patients," she continued, "and they are denied access because doctors are lazy or have big egos, so they can't be spoken to. The patient always pays the price." My straight dog family. And that's what Dr. Melissa Cable Wilson wrote on her Facebook page. And my straight dog family, there's an old saying which goes something like this. I wonder if I have it right. If Sprat come out, you see, and say, "Balu Lou got so high," correct me if I'm wrong, you better believe Sprat. Is that correct? Just came to mind. I'm trying to remember it. But for whatever reason, my straight dog family, what I mean, if that doctor says that things are terrible at the JNF hospital, she said patients are dying in droves at the JNF. And what is the Prime Minister doing or have said about that? Absolutely nothing. But that's an indictment against the Minister of Health. For whatever reason, Dr. Melissa Cable Wilson clarified the content of her post. And that post I mentioned went viral, no doubt. But a day or two after, she clarified the content of the post. And she wrote this. Let's be clear. No post that I have made or may make for that matter was/would ever be politically motivated or associated. My only politics is healthcare. The intention of my previous post was not meant to call into question the behaviors and actions of all medical doctors in St. Kitts. Frustration from lack of communication, camaraderie, and blatant detachment from patient care should not go unchecked. I am a medical doctor, but I'm also human. We know you didn't broad brush all doctors. You spoke to the doctors at the JNF General Hospital, where you sent your patients. And you said they are dying in droves. And we can't take back that. And that should be investigated. But Dr. Ju has focused on the future and everything smart. Smart housing, smart agriculture, and his roadmap is his smart hospital. But Dr. Ju will do well to take heed to the many stories that have been told about putting old wine in new bottles. And I therefore point him to the gospel according to Matthew chapter 9, verse 17, and I like the King James Version, which reads, Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine in new bottles, and both are preserved. Preserve the JN France General Hospital, Dr. Ju, which according to the late Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw, our hero, our first national hero, he said it belongs to the people of the entire state. It was financed by grants, not only from overseas, but from the Sugar Stabilization Fund and the sugar industry, Dr. Ju. Do you understand that? But you seem to want to abandon the JNF General Hospital just as you abandon the thousands of poor people on the poverty alleviation program. The JNF General Hospital began services to the public on Sunday, March 10, 1968. 1968, some 55 years ago, and replaced the Cunningham Hospital, which was in existence from 1848, over 100 years, if my maths are correct. And the JN France General Hospital defines us as a people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So why is Dr. Ju allowing the JNF General Hospital to run to the ground? And all he talks about is his smart hospital. Dr. Ju has failed us in so many ways, including the general supervision and management of our health systems. He needs to step aside as Minister of Health and let the beacons, the caregivers and the healthcare providers, even the patients, help to shine the light on the steps needed toward the path of overall wellness and better health in St. Kitts and Nevis, my Straight Talk family. And that's my second observation. Dr. Ju has failed us in so many things, in particular in our health, which is our wealth. And Ju is supposed to be a doctor. But since he became Prime Minister, my third observation, he is the authority on everything. Recently, he pretended that he is an hydrogeologist and such an expert on water. I mentioned the only trained hydrogeologist in the civil service, however, is the water engineer and manager, or manager and water engineer, I think it's called. The current one, Cromwell Williams. Williams is therefore the only qualified person to talk about water, to talk about bead and water extraction in St. Kitts and Nevis, and not Dr. Drew. Why are the politicians getting involved in this? And not the other loudmouths. But all of a sudden, Dr. Drew has been making all kinds of pronouncements about water and the water quality, which is said but tested to WHO standards. But he must also tell the country who tested the water. Dr. Drew has not told the country how much money was paid to BEAD to date and for what services. Mark Brantley, in the meantime, has given the press a mouthful about BEAD. Brantley has told the Federation that BEAD owes the NIA $2 million. He didn't say EC or US, but the contracts are normally in US. BEAD owes the NIA $2 million since 2017. Yet to date, no water was extracted and the taxpayers of Nevis have been robbed of this money. Brantley has also told us that the NIA move to litigate this matter in a court of law. This is what Brantley said to us, and more so his people in Nevis.
As I indicated publicly before, we had made a commitment to have an additional 3 wells done at a global cost of 10 million EC dollars back in 2017. In fact, it was in August of 2017 that we paid to a company called BEAD just over 2 million EC dollars as a down payment. BEAD has never come to do the work for the government. And so we don't have our $2 million and we don't have any wells. We have decided to take legal action against BEAD. That is ongoing. So it has not been for want of trying in relation to water.
And it's very odd, as I said, in one part of the Federation, a contractor is taken to court, and the other part of the Federation, he is pampered. I say pampered because BEAD drilled a well in Shadwell since 2017 as well, under the Team Unity administration. I was there. And this well should have yielded 350,000 gallons of potable water per day. But to date, that water has been declared unfit for human consumption. As far as I know, BEAD was already paid for those works. However, as we speak, the Shadwell 2 well was capped by BEAD since 2017. This is the Shadwell well. It's capped since 2017. And this, along with their performance in Nevis, is one of the many reasons any objective mind would surmise that BEAD's real mission in St. Kitts and Nevis is about extracting money from the treasuries. I said treasuries, the government treasury in Bastille and the government treasury in Charlestown, and not extracting potable water. That's the submission of many people, my straight dog family. Some would contest that. Our third observation relates to the what we call sheepishly or sheeplessly. Is that the right word? Dr. Drew, like a little lamb, I should say rather, is trying to walk back the insensitive decision of his cabinet to increase the salaries of ministers. His Minister of Tourism publicly supported the move, my Straight Dog family. His Minister of Tourism had this to say when asked the question at a town hall.
Are we planning to also raise the minister's salaries to discourage the corruption? Minister Henderson?
That's above my pay grade. But I'm hoping that the ministers can in fact get an increase in salary. It's something that I would not be opposed to.
Straightforward. His deputy, Jeffrey Hanley, took pains to try to justify the increase when he said this, my Straight Dog family.
And if I can interject just before the AG, in 2021, when I had the opportunity of participating in the budget of the former administration, I must say to us here tonight that there was an allotment of 85% increase in the budget of that year for parliamentarians. So it was already on the books. So I think the AG going to say something.
What Jeffrey Hanley was trying to say, it beats me. But his disgraced Attorney General Garth Wilkin provided a rationale in support of the 85% increase to ministers, which left the Federation baffled. Me too. As certainly, he said that they are all not paid well and can be easily bribed. How else can anyone interpret this response from Garth Lucian Wilkin?
In order to discourage ministers being corrupt, they should be paid well. Yes, you're doing a public service. However, you should be able to take care of your family. But it should also be reasonable so that you can satisfy your obligations. And when the person comes with the potential bribe, you can tell them, no, I don't want that.
What is he talking about, though? But no matter what Joe had said, it backfired. Because poor people have lost their $500, yet they want an 85% increase on their salaries. My Straight Dog family, I'm going to hasten on to my thesis. And I was speaking to someone, or someone called me today and said that they note that I have not spoken much about Nevis and the NIA. And I confess, I can confess here publicly as well, I have done so deliberately. And in the course of time, I will tell you why. But I have not discussed matters relating to Nevis. I'm still following, mark you, I'm still following the developments over there, especially the airport development. But we'll talk about that at some other time. But those are my observations in review for tonight, my Straight Dog family. And I move hastily to my thesis, which I titled, as I said, No Credibility, the Hallmark of a Poor Leader. My Straight Dog family. And a plethora of misrepresentation, distortion, manipulation of the truth, my Straight Dog family, by Terence Michael Drew, have shone a bright light on the issue of his credibility as our political leader and Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. It has even got so bad that many persons in St. Kitts and Nevis would turn off their televisions or their radios the moment they see him on the screen or hear his voice on the airwaves. Lock him off, as they say. Turn off your radio. Many consider him a turn-off And most persons believe that Dr. Drew is a serial liar. Now, credibility is fundamental. It is a character issue. It matters a whole lot to the people of this country, who will remark on a daily basis. Well, if we cannot believe what Dr. Drew says, then why should we listen to him? And that's what's happening. Lots of people do not believe what Dr. Drew says at any time, so they shut him out. They do not listen to him. On the 5th of August 2022, Dr. Drew had one opportunity to give the Federation a first good impression. But his misrepresentation, distortion, and manipulation of the truth has caused plenty doubt and mistrust to cling to him like an unpleasant aroma, like a bad odor. It clings to him like a bad scent, bad smell. From the moment Dr. Drew assumed office, he started making false assertions. From that time, he has continued to make statements to personally harm the reputation of others, especially those whom he strongly opposes, like the entire Harris family, I can say. And I don't need to defend them, as I know they can all defend themselves. Drew seems to have a vendetta against the Harris family in particular. But we will agree, if we are objective, that they are a bright, intelligent bunch of siblings. And St. Kitts and Nevis have produced families with bright siblings. Think about the Byron family, for example. So Dennis Byron, Terry, and the other Byrons. Think about the Arundel family of Sir Clement Arundel and all his brothers and a sister. The Lawrences from Nevis, Wendell and his brothers, Wendell Lawrence and his brothers. The Herbert family, Billy Herbert and all his sisters, bright people. Washington Archibald and his clan. St. Kitts Nevis always produce bright families, I dare say. But I'll stop here because I'm going to forget some bright families and may offend some people, because there are quite a lot of bright siblings that have emanated from St. Kitts and Nevis. You realize, however, that I did not want to come across as being biased. So I made no mention whatsoever of the Liburd families. But the point is, though, Drew has a real problem with the Harris family and will do and say anything to wipe them out and off the map here in St. Kitts and Nevis. One such example is his false claim about the Development Bank. Remember, he said this under the cloak of protection in the House of Assembly.
Madam Speaker, this one really hurts. Is the Development Bank. Oh boy. Madam Speaker, what took place at the Development Bank is enough to make a big man cry. But what has been uncovered, Madam Speaker, is over $20-something million can't be accounted for. In cash. This again is not some figment of my imagination. Madam Speaker, over $20-something million missing.
And he said in cash. But you recognize, my straight dog family, that suddenly Drew has stopped talking about the missing $20 million in cash. Dr. Drew was just on a mission to tarnish the good name of a highly qualified professional who happened to be a Harris. Then he moves from the $20 million missing from Development Bank to $120 million owed by the same bank to Social Security. Ain't that strange, my straight dog family? Ain't that interesting? He moves from one to another.
The Development Bank owes Social Security $119 million $921,959.78. 119 million, almost 120 million, owed to the Social Security. None of this money was borrowed under the new administration. This is what we meant.
And here how we hasten to add, none of it was borrowed under the new Labour administration. Well, what about the old Labour administration, Dr. Jew? Dr. Jew, did you catch Alzheimer's, if that's what they call it? So he forgets. December 2014, my straight dog family. And let's take a glance at the actuarial report of December 2014, my straight dog family. And the actuarial report is clear. It's pellucidly clear, my straight dog family. And you can see from the report, as I said, from the report you can see, my straight dog family, that the monies owed as at December 2014, over $200 million. So, Dr. Drew, if you're watching Straight Talk, you would have just looked at the screen and you will see the 11th actuarial report, as I said, of the Social Security Fund, which in accordance with Section 39 of the St. Kitts Nevis Social Security Act of 1977, it is prepared 3 years after the 10th, or that was prepared 3 years after the 10th actuarial review for the Social Security Board. And the main purpose of periodic actuarial reviews is to determine if the Social Security system in St. Kitts Nevis operates on sound financial and actuarial bases, and if it provides adequate and affordable levels of income protection. How sound are the financial and actuarial bases of the Social Security system in 2014? But Dr. Jew also spoke to monies owed to the Social Security not being paid by the Development Bank and having to rescue the bank and avert a run on the bank. Some nonsense like that. You remember that, my Straight Talk family? He averted a run on the bank. What nonsense, my Straight Talk family. Surely, Dr. Jew does not understand the role of the Development Bank, which, as I said before and repeat it, it was established to deal with people who commercial banks found not bankable, such as the students, for example, small business owners. The Development Bank gets loan financing from Social Security, the CDB, and the SIDF. So Dr. Jew is therefore ignorant and clearly do not understand the role and or nature of the business of the Development Bank. He spoke to the $120 million owed to the Social Security Board, all borrowed by the Team Unity administration. What a lie. But let's examine the notes to the Social Security Board's financial statements, my Straight Dog family. Let's examine those notes to the financial statements of the board. Tell me I have not downloaded that, my Straight Dog family. But I'll get those notes for you up on the screen in a moment, my Straight Dog family. But they provide some great interest, though. But former Prime Minister Timothy Harris gave Drew a free lecture, and I trust that it would help to improve the disappointment or the disappointing performance of our hopeless Prime Minister. Harris gave him this free lecture. my Straight Talk family.
And the Development Bank, as a government wholly owned entity, is responsible for pursuing policy decisions on behalf of the government. And some of them are risky. Because when you are lending to a vulnerable class, your exposure will be greater. When, for example, there was COVID-19 and the central bank said to the banks, give a little relief, we asked the Development Bank to extend the relief longer than that mandated for the other commercial banks, because we said it must be in sync with the compassion of the government, and we wanted to provide relief. Any debt incurred at the Development Bank would have been for these things. He talk about millions of dollars. Well, he must ask how much of that was for housing, how much of that were for other program. And indeed, it was a consolidation of many types of loans that the government itself asked the Development Bank to sustain. Long before Team Unity, when Dr. Joe attempts to create a scare or to scandalize somebody, it tells me he is out of his depth. He doesn't understand the realities of the very organization.
Out of his depth. You've been kind, Dr. Harris. One lady suggested that Dr. Joe is asleep to reality and begged him to wake up. Wake up, this lady asked him.
Mr. Joe, I beg you wake up. We're here, I know you're young, but wake up your brains, you know.
Wake up your brains, said that lady, Dr. Joe. He may be asleep, but whenever he opens his eyes and his mouth, he slanders hard-working individuals. Dr. Joe in short order distinguished himself as someone who, as a High Court judge referred to his predecessor, leader of his party, is a stranger to the truth. Even when the facts are glaring, Dr. Joe finds the truth hard to deal with. And that has done great damage to his credibility. When Dr. Joe, for example, can say that there was no significant investment in St. Kitts Nevis over the last 7 years, then he is not worthy to be called honorable. Could he?
We have been getting calls, lots of calls, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I imagine in other parts of the world it is day when it is the 4 in the morning here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have been bombarded by persons who are interested in investing in St. Kitts and Nevis. And of note, we have not seen any significant major investment in the last 7 years. And therefore, I think our people must know that people are ready to invest in St. Kitts and Nevis again.
How can this man be someone of credibility when these investments are right before our very eyes, right before his own eyes? He walked on to the new cruise pier like a Don when the largest cruise ship in the world came alongside. He drives daily on the Island Main Road, which was resurfaced at the tune of $69 million. He traverses across the old road bay without fear of a rock falling onto his luxurious Jeep. He stops in the at the traffic signals, which has helped to manage the traffic around Bastille and has created great improvement. But he don't use the ferries, so he won't go to the air-conditioned ferry terminal downtown. He promised to build a bus terminal for St. Peter's, and they deserve one. I had promised one myself. That was next. We did the East Bus Terminal, the West Bus Terminal, so yes, it's time for the St. Peter's Bus Terminal. But you told us that investors were lining up to come to St. Kitts to do business with his new administration. Yes, he said this.
It's quite interesting that after the elections, a number of investors came forward. And they said, Dr. Joe, we had been waiting to invest in St. Kitts and Nevis. And they said, why you didn't do it then? And they said they couldn't do it under the last administration. So we are looking at that, so they will have more, foreign investment that would help to stir the economy.
And my Straight Talk family, when asked why these investors never came before, he referred to duress and corruption in team unity. Could you imagine that, my Straight Talk family? This is what he said. The reason for the investors not coming and waiting for labor.
They wanted to work with an administration that they think would be a more prudent administration.
Did they give reasons for that?
Yeah, I think that they felt like they were under duress in certain circumstances, to be frank. And they think that there might have been too much corruption in the system. And many of them stayed away as a result of that. But now a number of them have come forward. But we have also sought new.
A number of them have come forward. What a lie. It's 1 year gone, and not one investor has come forward. So the question that has derived, the question that follows, is whether these investors think the same way as he said about the Jew Labour administration being corrupt, because we can point to a lot of corrupt practices. But my Straight Talk family, how many of us recall that in the first 3 months in office, our team unity administration addressed the burdensome VAT that Labour placed on the backs of the poor people in St. Kitts and Nevis? Your team unity administration removed VAT on food, medical and school supplies, and funeral expenses. 3 months after being in office, in April of 2015 to be exact, my Straight Talk family. How many of us remember this? Or why are we forgetting this, my Straight Talk family?
The Inland Revenue, the Ministry of Finance would have done their own analysis as to what impact it would have and how the government could afford to pay for it. And with that analysis done, it was concluded that it was time to move to the implementation of the VAT reduction or removal. Clearly, that was in response to the people's cry that these taxes, this 17% VAT was a burdensome tax. And so we have removed that on all items. We've selected the food and medical supplies and funeral expenses to remove that VAT. That was in response to what the people said were the most onerous, the whole list of items that were VATable.
That was then Prime Minister's Press Secretary, Clecton Phillip, and he was in his good graces as Press Secretary. And I recall that 3 months after being in office, in April 2015, someone told me, I always recall and I always remember this, that with the removal of VAT on food, they can buy $17 worth of relish or more relish from the $100. My Straight Talk family, again, you lied about the procurement of new dialysis machines. He said this, my Straight Talk family. We have him on record for the evidence.
I've also procured new dialysis machines because at the hospital we needed new dialysis machines. As you know, when we got there, we thought that there was not enough. As a medical doctor, I know that. And so we have procured. And so when they come in, I'll give the names and so forth of those who would have sourced them for us and so forth. The dialysis machines.
But months after, he hasn't procured any new dialysis machines. He comes and tells us months after that they were free. Yes, he said they were free.
When it comes to the matter of healthcare, there are issues still. We have brought dialysis machines from a donor in Canada, and here politicians here criticizing such a wonderful donation for free.
For free. What is being criticized, Terence Joe, is the fact that you accepted 15, 20-year-old dialysis machines that were recalled by the Ministry of Health in Canada. And you cannot deny that. High-income country like St. Kitts and Nevis getting these machines that are 20 years old. But Joe continues with his nonsense as well about the National Bank never paid dividend. He continues with that. My Straight Dog family.
I want to thank the board of the National Bank and the leadership at the National Bank that this year National Bank will be making a profit once again, and the persons who have shares with National Bank will receive their dividend at the appropriate time this year. So they can look forward to that, because they could not receive anything last year because National Bank, I think, made its first loss in its whole history.
My Straight Talk family, companies, including banks, like national banks, yes, they pay dividends from what is called the cumulative net earnings or profits, but they pay from retained earnings. All banks and all companies have retained earnings, which are the cumulative, as I said, net earnings or profits of a company after accounting for dividend payments. So to say that the bank never paid dividends, he must stop it. It is dishonest. It is foolish. He comes across as if he does not understand banking and finance, because the bank in fact paid a stock or issued a stock dividend, not a cash dividend, a stock dividend. But dividends are dividends, Dr. Joe. And sometimes I wonder, what do you say when you go out in these meetings? What do you say? Yes, retained earnings decrease when a company loses money, but that does not say that they won't pay the dividends. They paid dividends last year, $1 per value on your stocks, your shares. But the lack of transparency and the shady dealings that have been uncovered so far under this Jew administration invite more questions than answers. And frankly speaking, and with the greatest respect, there seems to be no other description of Dr. Jew than, as we call it, a pathological liar. And I'm very cautious to say that, because the last time I did, a friend of mine said to me that I was a bit too harsh and I should use more diplomatic language. That's what they told me. And when I asked what he meant, his response was that I could have just said that he was untruthful. But is that the same thing? But more recently, someone provided this description of Dr. Jew. I will use from here on, my Straight Talk family. He said this about Jew.
I think the Prime Minister have a credibility problem, because I heard the Prime Minister saying that when he got in, the country was shut down. But I know there was a full tourism season before, after COVID, before the change of government. Taxi
drivers were already working. Hotels were already open. As a matter of fact, Ike, you know that you were outside playing before the government changed. So to say that the country was shut down when you get in is not true. It's far from the truth. And there's another situation. As you asked the Prime Minister about job creation, there was a shovel-ready project, which is the Barclay High School. The project had already, the plans had already been done. The impact studies had already done. 17 million, as the Prime Minister said, was spent on the project. These are things that cost money, but you choose to shelf it. Today, the ordinary man, construction workers, instead of having the tools rusting, could have been there working. People could have been earning money at the Barclay High School. And why it was shut down? Because of politics. It had nothing to do with the water situation. No, because where you are proposing to put the hospital, there's a well in that area. There is a well in that area also. So we got to be careful. It's politics why the country is stagnant. As a matter of fact, since the change of government, I am involved in construction. I haven't worked for the year. The country is stagnant, actually maybe in reverse. It ain't got nothing to do with the farmer administration. It is, I think, it's because of incompetence why we are facing the situation that we are facing. And the Prime Minister tends to want to blame everything on the farmer administration. But what is the decision that they made?
Incompetence, according to that caller, who confronted Dr. Jew on Freedom last week. Dr. Jew is a leader who ducks and weaves and blames all the things on those that went before him. And that tells us he fundamentally lacks credibility. Making excuses for his failures and missteps is a slippery slope which he continues as well, but this is how he chooses to behave. And with just 3 months remaining in this current year, I believe that we can crown Prime Minister Terence Michael Jew as the political liar of 2023 for making false claims about every subject he has addressed. Dr. Jew is not capable of being Prime Minister. The direction in which our country is being led will cause us to lose the necessary checks and balances, and if we do, we will eventually lose control of our government, especially with a leader who clearly does not understand that one of the critical roles of the government is to cushion the inability of citizens to provide for themselves, particularly in the vulnerable conditions of youth, old age, sickness, disability, and unemployment due to economic forces beyond their control. At its best, government should provide an infrastructure of care to enable citizens to flourish socially and economically in the same way that an infrastructure of competition does. It provides social security, yes, that enables citizens to create their own economic security. The future of government builds on these foundations of protecting and providing. It irks me each time I hear Dr. Jew bellyaching about government subsidizing Skelec, for example, to the tune of millions of dollars each month. So what? The government subsidizes Dr. Jew to the tune of millions of dollars each month to live a life of bigotry on the backs of the poor people in this country. Yet he stopped a $500 allowance which was paid to thousands of poor people under the Poverty Alleviation Program since 2018. But examine what he did. From the moment he was sworn in as Prime Minister, days after, he moved out of his house in St. Peter's into a government property at the gated area or gated community called Beacon Heights. A guard hut was built at St. Peter's, and a 24/7 police security detail remains there. No wonder the new Commissioner of Police, James Sutton, has moved into the government-owned property at Bird Rock. Dr. Drew hired Miss Jeffers, Hazel Jeffers, as a butler, I understand, if that's what she's called. But who we understand also looks after his wardrobe. She even accompanied him, Dr. Drew, on his official trip to the Republic of China and Taiwan. The state pays for his local transportation and his frequent travel overseas, at times you understand, via private chartered jet planes, like the president of Venezuela. He has a security detail of 24 or 25 police officers, and he eats daily, except Sundays, at fancy restaurants and hotels, at the expense of the state, you and I, taxpayers. So if the government can subsidize the high cost of living of Dr. Drew, why can't the government subsidize electricity and water for poor people in St. Kitts and Nevis? Dr. Drew has no credibility. The hall, or the hallmark, beg your pardon, of a poor leader. That's my story tonight. I'm not going to change it. I tarried for long, as I wanted to make this point lucid. My Straight Dog family, I'm going to open the lines. Yes. And entertain your calls and your emails. I do have quite a few emails already. But if you're so minded to call, the numbers are 663 6672, my Straight Dog family. And or 646-829-6672. The email address is straighttalkpatches, that's one word, at gmail.com. I always like to implore you, before I open the lines, to respect others. And of course, to achieve that, you must first respect yourselves. Let us try to be fair to all concerned. Let us try to build goodwill and better friendships. Let us ensure that in the things we say and or do, they will be beneficial to all concerned. And in saying and or doing those things, let us strive to build a kinder, gentler St. Kitts and Nevis. Is 9:21, my Straight Dog family. I tarry long. Let's go to the lines. Caller, you live. Thanks for...
Is that it?
Yes, my Bible man. You're pretty early tonight. How art thou?
I'm wonderful. God is great.
God is wonderful, yes.
And God is good.
All the time.
Now, Mr. Patrick, I am waiting from Psalm 75. And the word of God said, wherefore, I said unto the fool,
deal not foolishly.
Deal not foolishly.
True.
To the wicked, lift up your hands on high.
Lift up your horns and high, yes.
And speak not to the neck. Verse 6 said, promotion cometh not from the east,
nor the west,
nor from the west,
nor from the south,
nor from the south.
Comes from God.
But God is the judge. He put down one
and set up
and set up another. Now I am talking the word of the living God. Me not talk no nonsense story. People do not want to hear the word of the Lord. And God rule the whole universe. God could do what he wants, my brother. And listen here, a lot of people believe them are God. But me know only one God. In Isaiah, it said, Isaiah chapter 43, read, people read what the word of God says. He said, I am God, and there is no other but me. Because I ain't going no further than taking on me. I don't say what the word of God says. I ain't going no further than there.
Okay.
But I'm saying tonight, is that trust in God and God alone. That's the last thing I have to say. In 2 Chronicles, chapter 14, read the point. It says, my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways. Then God says, I'm heal the land and therefore forgive their sins. My brother, have a pleasant night and all the best to you. Thank you.
Have a pleasant night as well, my dear brother, the Bible man. Reading from Psalm 75. Let's go back to the lines. Thank this caller for holding. Caller, you live. Hello, caller.
Straight talk. Mr. Straight talk.
How is Philadelphia? Am I getting it right? I always get it wrong.
Yes, Philadelphia is in the house.
Yes, Tonyo, and I forgot to hail St. Louis tonight. You have equipment on?
I'm going to hail St. Louis tonight.
Yes,
Sister St. Louis, Queen St. Louis, we love you.
Special lady, yes.
Yes, we love her.
You have your equipment on? You're close by your equipment there.
The radio is, let me get in here.
Yes. I want the whole world to hear.
Better?
I'm getting the feedback, but go ahead.
Something is wrong somewhere outside there.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Straightak, I didn't want to call you tonight, but I had to get out my bed when I hear that young lady say her politics. And that's what get me that her politics is good politics. Mr. Straightak, I'm going to have to crown Dr. Joe as some kind of king lawyer, no?
King lawyer, yes.
Because the last time I listened to Dr. Joe, well, you really talk the truth tonight. You said that people are turning off the radio. And me for sure, any one of them midgets come up on the radio to speak on the news, me turn them down. Me not play them. So, you know that people are doing it. But Dr. Joe says that he sent for some people to fix the thing machine. So what happened? They never come?
So he came to train people to work on the 20-year-old machines.
But that's what he said. He said he sent for them and they're going to be in the country soon. But me not hear nothing else that they come, the machine is in use, the machine is not in use. I don't know our Prime Minister can do a whole lot better than what you do. Understand? And I don't want to take up your time tonight because you said you have a lot of emails. But I just want to let you know that you are doing a wonderful job. Keep doing what you're doing. So that's all I have to say because that young lady, that doctor, who says what she has to say, she said, look, my politics no between PAM, nor Labour, nor Unity. This is my politics. And that's a good politics woman. And everybody should recognize who she is. That she talking from her politics way, that's what is going on. Mr. Straightak, continue to do what you do. We are doing well. Queen St. Louis, we will see you when we see you. Okay?
Yes,
Mr. Straightak, be good. Take care.
Yes, be good. Myself, see you when I see you, my brother. It's now 28 past the 9 o'clock hour, a Straight Talk family. And this message reads, Mr. Attorney General, one of the reasons you gave for your government's plan to increase ministers' salary is really unacceptable. For example, you said that an increase in their salaries will hinder them from accepting bribes and avoid them getting caught up in corruption and corrupt practices. Mr. AG, I believe you should retract that statement and tell us it was a light moment for you. For you ought to know the phrase, the more one has, the more one wants. Read this email. The Bible clearly states in Proverbs 20 verse 27, as hell and the grave are never satisfied, so is the eyes of a rich man. Mr. AG, remember that. Read this before you are not talking. Yes, that's a word not worthy of broadcast. Caller, you're live. Thank you for holding.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, Patches.
Good night, my dear brother. Culture. How art thou?
Oh, thou is good, man. Thou is good with our vision. Well, since you start so late, well, I'm going to just make one input and I'll try and pack it with all that I have to say. Good night, brother. Straight Talk. And good night, SO. Extra special good night to you, SO. Time short, so the others will have to understand. Let me start first with this king lawyer that we are the lowest leader of any country in the Caribbean is that man, Dr. Joe. Now, under the Team Unity administration, Dr. Harris and his cabinet, they all form what you call a committee to deal with the marijuana decriminalization of it. And Ras Oil is on that committee. Now you're going to tell me so many things in the country need to be looked after by the leader of the country who calls himself a prime minister. Even though he scored an outside goal and say he's a prime minister. He's supposed to let the committee of the marijuana go to St. Vincent, where he went. Go in the marijuana field, taking pictures and showing people where he is. He do not respect anything that was done profitable to the country. He has no right up there. He's the prime minister. He's the leader of the country. Let somebody, one or two, I will suggest. And anybody else could have go St. Vincent and deal with the marijuana situation up there to get to learn how they come about doing this, so that down here could do follow the same thing. But no, he do not respect the treasury or taxpayers' money, because you know every time a plane was here, the amount of porks he get in and hotel treatment, first class on plane and all this kind of thing. That's why he's traveling so much. And the lady, Dr. Wilson, Sergeant Wilson wife or whatever she did, whatever she said about hospital, she's so correct. She's correct, because Patrick once ago, when we listen the death announcement on Zed Monitor, we only see here 1 and 2 and 3. But now, sometimes I count them in the morning all at 10 and 11. Dying, and you can hear they want to thank the nurses and the doctors in the hospital, whichever ward it is. So the lady who said that people up there are dying in drones, that should be Dr. What is his name? Joe. That should be main concern about the country. The health of the country is important. He said he's a doctor. Well, you know the reason why he do not condemn or say anything about the amount of people dying regular and fast in the hospital? Because those 15 dialysis use out of order, outdated machine that he said he got for the Federation. He know what they can do to the people in the hospital anyway. These days, a lot of people are sick with kidneys and they need dialysis treatment. And so, he cannot condemn what was said about the people who died in the hospital. Because anytime those old-time dialysis machines start to use in the hospital, the death's going to be multiplied by triple and quadruple. So that's why he can't condemn it, because he know definitely what he bring down here is not suitable for animals, never mind people. They're used, they're contaminated with all kind of people blood disease in them, and he can talk about the new big liar. He must stop it, man. Stop it. And the next thing again, Pat, is he talking about Bede. I wonder if you realize what Mark went to say, what Bede do to them. Nevis is part of the Federation, and if he could do that deal, if Bede could do that to Nevis, and Mark say what he has to say about it, Dr. Joe don't have no respect for our treasury. Otherwise, he will leave Bede alone, let it go. Bede come here, and he dig well, up Shadwell. And what come out of that? Nothing. And he went and Mama got Nevis. But this Jew here have no love for the country, no love for the people, no love for the taxpayers, and all them things there. So he going to talk about the fine water over can and all this kind of nonsense. The water over where they dig the well, why you don't use it since you think it's potable water? Why you don't use it? You just come boasting about Bede and water. When you get time for that, let he lead the country sinking under the water, everybody bawling mother, everybody Tutmun Sam. A load of them, they who vote for Labour, they bawling mother, some of them making noise easy, out of shame. But there is nothing to shame about. It is obvious and it's reality. Joe has carried the country way down under the water with ignoring it. That is, I'll try and begin a little piece before you shut down, because you owe some time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input, my brother. Mr. Ombudsman reads this email. It is 5 months now since you were handpicked by the Labour government to be Ombudsman. Having accepted the Labour political appointment, contrary to what the Constitution clearly indicates, that the office of the Ombudsman should not be a political post. However, you touted on all the radio stations in your dissertation that you were going to be fair, honest, devoid of prejudice, bias, and politics. You also promised that you were going to return to the airwaves regularly to report on matters that you are investigating and inform on the status quo. Don't tell me that for 5 months you have received 5 months' salaries and not one case of injustice you can find to report on. I am very disappointed, sir. Reads this email. The Ombudsman, 5 months, so time has flown. A straight dog family. And he gets a good salary, mark you. Very interesting position by the bishop. Bishop, my good friend. This message, okay, this probably is not for broadcast. Sam needs to be investigated is the caption of this email. Good evening, Patches. Sam Condor and the Labour Party should be the last to criticize the Development Bank and Social Security. As one of the longest serving ministers of Social Security, Sam's record is the most dismal at Social Security, to say the least. These are some of the questions Sam Condor and Labour need to answer. Why did they allow the $90 million investment in Beacon Heights to fall under their watch? Did Sam receive any kickback for his campaign in 2010? Why did Sam Condor encourage and allow the Social Security Board to purchase 44 acres of land from his friend, the late C.B. Sebastian, for an alleged inflated price, and being aware that 10 acres of those same lands were not usable? At present, the Social Security Board is trying to reclaim their monies for the 10 acres. 3. Sam needs to also explain the Fountain Land fiasco sweetheart deal where millions of dollars were misplaced in some Labour people's hands. More information on this in the future. Reads this email. Yes, Sam Conda was the eternal minister of Social Security. Patches, it was a breath of fresh air to hear our former Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, speak last week when he held his press conference. He cleared up the nonsense and lies that have been spoken by Dr. Jew. All who didn't get a chance to listen to the press conference should really try and listen to it. That's how a true leader must speak, and Timothy Harris has shown that he is a man who cares for the poor and needy in this country. I hope he will come to the people more often. We need an opposition leader. Reads this email. This other email reads, Patches, I had to laugh last week after Timothy Harris held this press conference. Dr. Jew ran to Freedom FM to distract people from talking about the press conference. Dr. Jew knows that people will be calling into the radio station to talk about the press conference and the things they have heard. So what he did, he went to the radio station to peddle his lies and nonsense again, and to distract people from talking about what they have heard during the press conference. I had to laugh again when I heard Dr. Jew said that reporters didn't ask the right questions, and he started to name the questions he thinks they should have asked. I want to ask Dr. Jew one question. How is it when the same reporters ask him questions he don't want to answer? He sends them all over the place to ask other people. Up to now, he can't answer the question how much passports he has sold since he had taken government and the nationality of the people. When he answers those questions, then he can ask his questions. Reads this email. This other email reads, Hello Patches. You are continuing to do a wonderful job in keeping the deranged Prime Minister honest. Patches, instead of you coming to make foolish, unsubstantiated and ludicrous statements about the finances of the Social Security and other major financial institutions in this country, we the people are asking to lead in the Parliament with the immediate effect the audited financial statements for Social Security up to 2021 and 2022 and publish same for all to see as mandated by law. These were already available even before August 2022. This is the right thing to do. It is evident that prudent management and oversight of the fund over the past several years under Unity and by the former boards and director have placed the organization in a solid position. We will be watching with keen eyes how this administration will deal with the fund. Let Dr. Jew know that we, the citizens of this country, will not be accepting any unscrupulous deals and shenanigans at Social Security. Jew, stop putting the institution into disrepute, playing politics. Produce the actuary reports and the financial statement and stop talking garbage every time you open your mouth. Well, I think the next actuarial report is due as at December 2015, because if I recall, the last report was done in 2020, am I right? So 21, 22, 23, yes, at the end of December, we will have the next actuarial report. And my Sure Talk family, you may have joined me late. And I joined you late, but I tarried long because I wanted to make these points tonight. They were important to place some points on to the records, lest we allow Dr. Jew to get away with the nonsense that he peddles. He peddles so much nonsense and insults the intelligence of our people. And sometimes it's really upsetting. Dr. Jew's disregard for facts, yes, it serves his political agenda of constant, remorseless attacks and negativity in relation to his opponents. Dr. Jew confuses everyone each time he speaks, and he causes the country to be in a state of confusion. He talks rapidly, quickly, and continuously in a foolish, incomprehensible way. He's an embarrassing gaffe from times about the development bank. He prevented a run on the bank, for example. And we explained the role of the development bank. And Dr. Jew is therefore ignorant and clearly do not understand the nature of the bank. The cost of living has left many people here in St. Kitts and Nevis in a situation that can easily trap them so they become involved with problems from which it will be difficult for them to escape. And during this time, Dr. Jew and his government ministers, they gloat, they travel all over the world. Many see only doom and gloom as we talk plenty, but we do nothing. My straight talk family. How long they have been talking about the minimum wage. And look who is leading negotiations. A man who has done nothing. A man who has been taken care of by the taxpayers all his working life. And it's going on to 40 years, and this country has benefited nothing from his service and or lack of expertise. You know why? You know why, my straight talk family. But as we continue to examine the things that are wrong, we'll go back to the lines and take this call. Call you live.
Yeah, Patches. I come back quickly, brother. Well, I know what was going to happen after Dr. Harris, Prime Minister Harris, press conference. Didn't anticipate what was going to happen. And just like what the emailer said, that is what Terrence Jew did. He tried to go up on another radio station because he talking to distract people, but people were distracted from he, not from PLP. Because that is what the whole world was waiting for. To hear the real truth now about the lies them propaganda, what you keep on talking about. Every time you open your mouth, talking about the farm administration. Looking back cannot move the country forward. But you see, Joe, he gets some advice, but he can't take none. Because what? The country he cannot run. Now, Dr. Harris and Jew get shake up with the leader of PAM when he had the press conference. And he was bawling, he taught him. But Dr. Harris jumped up on it with the truth, mash up the guab. So he tried to go all over the place, and then later on he sent his special advisor who break the law and said, because he talking. I just moved the radio. Because like somebody, anytime I hear them call Junior, I turn on my radio. And it was when he opened his mouth to talk. My radio now so nummy that anytime he come on in to talk, my radio does it, and I shut it off. Because I don't want to hear him. I can't take on nobody who telling lies. And that man, all he got for the country is pure lie and lie and lie. Pure lies he got for us. So let he go, and he cannot rule no country. He do not care about nothing. Absolutely nothing. Finding faults about investors calling him middle night and they can't wait to come. Where are they? I done already counted all the things that were done under Team Unity. And I reached to 27 things that you all did when you all was in government. But I'm going to get them clean up and I'm going to release them Thursday, God willing. I am going to release them. Now, so many persons are dying from this and dying from that. And before he get on the radio, and offer his sympathy to those who die accidentally and negatively. He prefer to go up on a plane. Go away, go away, go away, go away. Go away. But I am telling you, Joe, I know you're listening. Me radical culture, you're telling you, you cannot last 2 years in there, not you. Because you haven't done anything fruitful or progressively to the country. You condoning wrong. Look at what your Attorney General did. Hear what the judge tell him? You need to do like other countries out there. When any ministers in the government did anything wrong, they tell them, boy, step down. Look at simple football. The girls, them, the ladies, them from Panama, whatever it is, the country. Like. Look what the coach do to one of them, kiss up on she lips, and the whole football fraternity, they say, no, he got to go. And here you can tell me, the leader of our justice system did what he did, and you know what he did? He break the law, and you got him there talking about proud of him about Attorney General. Attorney General, you go ahead, man. We're going to vote you out of there. You need to get out of there. You cannot run a country, not you. And we can get you before 2 years. Patches, you have a good night, brother. I can't remember nothing else right now.
Have a good night as well, my dear brother. I would like to ask Dr. Douglas about the $500 he promised us here in St. Paul's with this email. My Straight Talk family, it's 10 before the 10 o'clock hour. If you join me for the first time, Straight Talk is heard every Monday and Thursday from 8 to 10 in the PM. At times when I have a tardy start, we give you back the time. There's some people suggesting that I go on to the 11 o'clock. But if I do that, I'm sure you'll want me to go until 12 o'clock. But let's keep it until 10 o'clock and pack everything in those 2 hours. There are issues before us. We have a leader who has no credibility. And that, as I said, is the hallmark of a poor leader. We need to look at the cost of his leadership in terms of his daily costs. Because we spend a lot of money. I say we because it's our money. We spend a lot on the Prime Minister. In his gated community in Beacon Heights. His state pays for his transportation. He has his butler. His frequent travel overseas. We understand he uses the private chartered jet planes. But the thing about it, these things are being held in secrecy. He operates a government of secrecy. Imagine he awards a contract for $5 million, US dollars, you understand, and says a man brought the idea, so he give him the contract. That's what he seemed to be suggesting. The contract was awarded, so why wasn't it tendered according to the rules of procurement? This is what you said.
We have sent the fire truck, we have sent the water truck. We continue to send the fire truck, we continue to send the water truck. We have just signed a contract to purchase water storage tanks. So at least when the water truck goes, they have a larger receptacle to store the water. People are having serious challenges. I would also like to thank Mr. Ashley Allers, because he's the one who brought the idea of how we can help with the storage receptacles that we're going to launch just now. That took a little bit longer because I had to go through the procurement process and so forth for transparency and so forth. But that is another matter another aspect that we have brought to bear to deal with the issue in terms of getting larger receptacles. And when we have more water, those will be set up completely so that people can have proper storage.
But if Beat is finding so much water, as you said, why do the people want this storage? if you're finding so much water. But we'll find out. The fact is, there was no procurement done. And your chief legal advisor said that it's a crime not to follow the Procurement Act. Those are my words, but this is what he said.
Our Procurement Act requires that there be a competitive bidding process to ensure the government gets value for money, and it makes it a crime to spend money from the Treasury without the procurement process being completed.
Well, that crime was committed as well on the Bradshaw Museum and the original demolition of the Bahasi High School before the tender, the hiring of security at the Joseph N. France General Hospital, and the list goes on. But we have a leader who clearly does not understand that one of the critical roles of the government is to cushion the inability of citizens to provide for themselves, particularly in the vulnerable conditions of youth, old age, sickness, disability, and unemployment due to economic forces beyond their control. My Stray Dog family, we submit that Terence Michael Drew is not capable of being Prime Minister. That's not the leader we want at this time, who ducks and weaves and blames all things on everybody else, my Stray Dog family. He makes excuses for his failures and missteps and blames the government that has gone. Team unity is not there, so do your work. My Stray Dog family, tonight we looked at, for those who may have just joined me, we looked at the leadership or the lack thereof of the leadership of this country at this time. My Stray Dog family, when we examine what is going on in our country, we must say that enough is enough. My Stray Dog family, on August the 5th, 2022, Dr. Drew had one opportunity to give the Federation a first impression, a good one, but he lost it. His misrepresentation, distortion, and manipulation of the truth has caused plenty doubt and mistrust that will cling to him like an unpleasant aroma, as I said earlier. Many in this country have become aware and are expectant of this misrepresentation, distortion, and manipulation of the truth by Dr. Drew, Terence Michael Drew. It has shone a bright light on the issue of his credibility as our Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. It has even got so bad that many persons in St. Kitts and Nevis would turn off their televisions or their radios the moment they see him on the screen or hear his voice on the airwaves. And I could understand it when I hear you say it. Because when he tells these blatant lies, he He's like Satan. He wants you to sin your soul. Many consider him a turn-off, and most persons believe that he's a serial liar. Credibility, my Straight Dog family, is fundamental. It is a character issue. It matters a whole lot to the people of this country who remark on a daily basis. Well, if you cannot believe what Dr. Drew says, then why should we listen to him? And I could understand that. My Straight Dog family, fully. But from the moment Dr. Drew assumed office, he started making false assertions. From that time, he has continued to make statements to personally harm the reputation of others, especially those whom he strongly opposes, my Straight Dog family. But as we wind down, there's so many false claims he has made about the Development Bank, about Social Security, about National Bank. Clearly out of its depth, my Straight Dog family. But as we continue on Thursday, we will continue providing the evidence in terms of the actuarial reports or excerpts from the actuarial report, the financial statements of Social Security, and we'll see who has borrowed money or who borrowed money from the Social Security Board. We'll see how sound are the financial and actuarial bases of the Social Security system. As a matter of fact, reserves under Team Unity went to 1.7 billion, I think it was. My memory serves me well. Increase from about just over 1 billion in 2014. But my Straight Dog family, Dr. Drew is ignorant and clearly do not understand the role and nature of many things around him as our leader. Someone mentioned he went to St. Vincent. Well, I saw it on his Facebook page. That's how he governs, by his Facebook page. And he was sniffing marijuana. But the proper thing to do, which was recommended, as a matter of fact, and I looked at the establishment of the authority, it was recommended that the CEO of the authority and another officer, which I recommended should be employed, should do a job attachment in St. Vincent, since we had that relationship with St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because we actually looked at their own legislation to prepare ours. But my Straight Dog family, it has gone bad. And our leader is asleep. But I'll take one more final call for the night. I'll come back after this. Caller, you live.
Mr. Patel.
So.
I make a mistake there. It's Second Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. Not Second Chronicles 14. Second Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. So I come back to really to put it straight.
Okay, well.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
So it says, my people which are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Then I shall hear, and they shall heal the land and forgive their sins. Have a pleasant night, Mr. Patrick, and you be good.
Yes, I'll try.
The word of God said, no weapon that form against you shall prosper.
None at
And
all.
every tongue that rises up against in judgment shall condemn. It is the heritage of the servant of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, said the Lord. Have a pleasant night, Mr. Patrick. See you, bye.
Have a pleasant night. Well, to her is human, and like we said, it's always mature of anyone to correct themselves. So that was a very good of you, the Bible man. But as we wind down tonight's programming, even when the facts are glaring, Dr. Joe finds the truth hard to deal with and has done great damage in the process to his credibility. When Dr. Joe can say that there was no significant investment in St. Kitts and Nevis over the last 7 years, he's not worthy to be called honorable, is he? When these investments are right before his very eyes, and the whole country speaks about it. When he told us that investors were lining up to come to St. Kitts and Nevis to do business with his new administration, we asked, where are they? Where are the investors, Dr. Joe? My Straight Dog family, he lied about the procurement of new dialysis machines. He continues to peddle nonsense about the bank never paid dividend. Why should we listen to this man? Why do our leader have to lie? Why is a question we ask ourselves. My Straight Dog family, our leader, as I said, ducks and weaves and blames all things on his or on the predecessor administration. He's not capable of being the prime minister. The direction in which our country is being led will cause us to lose the necessary checks and balances. And if we do allow this to continue, the people will eventually lose control of their government. It's our government. A government of the people, for and by the people. But when we have a leader who clearly doesn't understand that one of the critical roles of the government is to cushion the ability of citizens to provide for themselves, especially in the times of vulnerability, in their youth, old age, sickness, disability, and unemployment, deriving from economic forces beyond their control. At best, the government should provide an infrastructure of care to enable citizens to flourish socially and economically. My Straight Dog family, it irks me each time I hear Dr. Joe belly aching about the government and subsidizing this, when the government subsidized him to the tune of millions of dollars as he lives a life of bigotry on the backs of the poor people in this country. He stopped the $500 allowance which was paid to thousands of poor people under the PAP since 2018. But my Straight Dog family, time will tell. The government can subsidize the high cost of living of Dr. Joe. Why can't the government subsidize electricity and water for the poor people in St. Kitts and Nevis? Dr. Joe, I conclude, has no credibility. And that's the hallmark of a poor leader. That's my story tonight, and I am not going to change it. I want to thank Almighty God for guiding our conversation tonight, and as always, I want to thank you, the many listeners, for those of you who sent emails, those of you who call. and those of you who just listen on social media, YouTube and Facebook. Remember, my Straight Talk family, you are the ones who make Straight Talk. And for that reason, I say a big, big thank you. I am Ian Patches Liburd, and God's spare we will connect on Thursday for another edition of Straight Talk. Until then, be good to yourselves and to all whom you meet. And remember that whatever your mind conceive, that you will achieve. But first of all, you got to believe. So when you wake in the morning, thank God for the morning light. Thank Him for taking you through the night. And my Straight Talk family, keep moving on. Bye-bye. Until we connect on Thursday.
In the morning, I thank God for the morning light. Give Him thanks and praises for taking me safely through the night. For the rest of food and loving care, and for my mother's breath of life that's got me here. So whatever my mind conceives, that I will achieve, you better believe, because I do the things I should, be to my brethren kind and good, the best I could. So I'll keep moving on, I won't stop now, I'll keep moving on, till I reach the top somehow. Down on my knees, the Lord I kneel and pray, with my heart and soul, beg Him to take me through each day, my guardian to keep